Joseph was surprised that Alvin was in the celestial kingdom. He was surprised because Alvin wasn't baptized. This is the reason for a lot of my assumptions that Joseph has this knowledge of God, and he's also carrying around this idea that Alvin was being punished. So this timeline, we have this period of time between when Alvin dies and when Joseph Smith receives the authority to baptize. And then after he receives the authority to baptize, for 3 years, Joseph knows that you have to be baptized by proper priesthood authority, and he is still operating under the assumption that there's heaven and hell, and that's it. 3 years, Joseph knows God is loving, but is also carrying around this idea that Alvin was in hell. After those 3 years, he receives the vision of the 3 kingdoms. And for 4 years, Joseph knows that Alvin's not in hell, but he is still carrying around this wound from the belief that he's going to be separated from Alvin. I want you to think about the implication of this timeline. Joseph loved God. He, more than anyone, knew that you had to be baptized and that it had to be done by priesthood authority, by proper authority. And he had these good experiences with this loving God, but he was still carrying around these perspectives that probably seemed tragically unfair. And despite all that Joseph knew of God, I wonder if he ever had questions. And if he didn't, well, I probably would have had some questions. And for the sake of everybody who does have questions, let's talk about it. I wonder if Joseph had any questions. How could a loving God do this? How could requiring baptism and authority be congruent with this perfectly fair God? How could God have let Alvin die before the authority was restored? And what about everyone else? Even if Alvin had lived to be baptized by proper priesthood authority, what about everyone who lived and died with no chance of being baptized by proper priesthood authority? And then there's the question that most of us, if not all of us, have related to at one point or another in our lives. And that is, if God is so loving, how can this be his perfect plan? It didn't make sense. Joseph knew God was loving and perfect and just and fair, but he was also operating under the assumption that Alvin was being punished because he had died before the authority was restored. How did Joseph reconcile those ideas? Or did he not reconcile them and he just held on anyway? Is there anything that you are carrying that does not seem congruent with a perfect, just, fair, loving God? Have you had experiences with God where you have felt his love and you felt him lead you here to this church, but you're still having a difficult time reconciling XYZ? I can promise you 2 things. I can promise you that there are answers and that there is an atonement of Jesus Christ.